Welcome one and all to the Church of Combustion. I am the Honorable Rev. Rod Knox, and we welcome you, brothers, sisters, skidders. Today I bring you a testimonial of speed, of suffering, and of a miracle that arrived honking. You see, we gathered in Carbondale, Kansas to close out the Rallycross season in the name of Our Lady of Blessed Acceleration. And I will be honest with you, this story contains joy and it contains warning, because some miracles, they can bring salvation, and others, well, they can spark an addiction. Which brings us to a brief message from the church. Hello, I'm Reverend Rod Knox. Do you or someone you know suffer from loud pedal addiction? You know, hearing turbo spool noises when there is no turbo present, or perhaps waking in the middle of the night with your foot just going crazy. Well, we are here to help. At the Loud Pedal Addiction Hotline, our operators are standing by to take your call and assist you in your long-suffering addiction. Just call 1-900-HOT-FEET. Really? That's the number we got? Couldn't find nothing better than that. Oh, okay. So our operators are standing by on their feet, their deliciously tempting feet. What is happening? To help you with all your symptoms and sort out a treatment plan. They can help you identify all the normal triggers, such as the smell of rubber, heat, pressure, tingle toes? And they're waiting with their shoes off and their voluptuous feet exposed. What is this? We are an outreach program, and we wish to reach out and touch your delicate, sultry feet. Now, Jim, this is that foot thing again, isn't it? Every time with the foot thing. We're trying to help people. This is a real problem. Don't let the number stand in your way. Give us a call today. 1-900-HOT-FEET. And I promise you, you will not suffer alone. That's 1-900-HOT-FEET. Calls cost $3 for the first minute, $1 each additional minute. All proceeds go to helping someone, definitely not the Reverend, in a meaningful way with their loud pedal addiction. Remember, the first step is admitting you have a right foot. Second step, learning restraint. And now, back to the last day of Rallycross in the Kansas region. The original plan for the day was simple. I was to drive Brother Richard's 2001 NB chassis Miata, and Brother Ryan would bring his 1973 MGB GTS, so named for its Toyota heart, and we would do battle in the class of modified rear-wheel drive to see if the old British relic could keep pace with its more modern Japanese disciple. But by midweek, my spirit had wavered. I thought, it is cold outside, brothers and sisters. The days are getting colder, and I thought perhaps with the holidays approaching, I could skip this event, take some much-needed time to assemble whatever this is. But Brother Richard would not allow it. He was insistent, and he said he had a very good idea for a video, so me not being one to pass up a chance to preach to the congregation, I headed across the great state of Kansas to the wonderful town of Carbondale and McCain's Off-Road Park. As I began to set up for my day, I received a call from Brother Ryan. He was off doing his duties as chair of the event, and he said, Brother Richard has called and said that you should start pointing your camera down the road because he is about to arrive. So I took my post at the gate, and then I heard it. Not the spirited honk of a cheerful commuter car, no sir. It was the prophetic honk of something much more rare. And Richard arrived not in his Miata, but in a legend, a Celica GT4 chassis ST205. A turbocharged, all-wheel drive homologation monster, a car you don't simply see, but you bear witness to it. Now, the story must back up a bit. About a month earlier, Brother Richard had told us that he might buy this very beast, but he explained to us the deal had fallen through. Brothers and sisters, the deal did not fall through, and there it was in cold steel and turbo-generated heat. I was flabbergasted, to say the least. And then he dropped the second miracle notion of the day, the co-drive seat would be all mine. Now, the good Reverend here is not someone you would normally call a sensitive man. But when given a gift such as this, the old Reverend's eyes could begin to water. Just a touch might be getting a bit of the vapors now, just thinking about it. That is not friendship. That is the ministry of Our Lady of Blessed Acceleration at work. After all had gathered around to heap their blessings upon the glorious machine, we gathered for the drivers' meeting. It was a cold day, my friends. 25 degrees at the most, wind blowing out of the north. We did our best to stay warm, but it was not going to be a walk in the proverbial park. We were cold. The cars were cold. And most importantly, the cones were very cold. I don't know if you have ever picked up a traffic cone. If you can imagine, it is made of some very healthy rubber, and when it gets cold, it becomes essentially a brick wall. So we finished the drivers' meeting, and before we could jump behind the wheel, we did our duty to our brothers and sisters of the first heat. We took the course, flags in hand, cones scattered like ancient relics. Now seems like as good a time as any to initiate the uninitiated on our fair sport of SCCA Rallycross racing. You see, Rallycross is time attack on the dirt. Only one car at a time, on a course made from cones that only exist for that one day. There is no door-to-door racing, just you, the clock, and whatever bad decisions that you brought with you. It isn't one heroic run that gets it done, but rather all runs combined. Your time is cumulative across the day, run after run, added up like sins on a ledger. Some days you get 6 runs, good days 12, blessed days even 14. So the sport isn't about just getting that one perfect run like them sissy autocross folk. It's about learning fast, adapting faster, and continuing to claw your way back as the course and the conditions keep shifting. One run, you're a hero, and the next you're lost in the plinko cones, wondering, what language exactly do cones speak? And it all counts. Hit a cone, that's not the end of the world, it's just 2 seconds added. If you get lost, and yes, you will, you rejoin safely and you get 10 seconds added to your time for a missed gate. And the beauty is you don't need a race car, a trailer, or a pit crew. You need a safe car, a helmet, a willingness to work a heat, and the courage to say that run was not great, but I'll get it on the next try. So after our labor in the first heat, whence cones were demolished and times to beat were laid down, it was time for the parade lap. Richard drove and I rode on the wrong sides of the car. We scouted out problem sections and promised out loud to take it easy on the car, which is a promise often made but rarely kept. Now, I decided to ride along for Richard's first run because I wanted to see the course at speed from inside the machine. Richard launched gently, softly, and we entered the first slalom, and immediately it became clear. You could scarcely even look at this course through the windshield of this car. The speed would push your face backward, like the wind was trying to baptize your eyeballs. He threaded his way through the sweeper and navigated the plinko cones with care. Did I mention the plinko, folks? My goodness. This is a special event. We tied in all the Kansas region fun times that we've had over the course of 2025. And we had ourselves a little bit of a slalom, and then a little bit of barrel racing, and also some plinko, where we set out a sea of cones with only one-ish definable path through the cones. And at the end of each run, the cones are changed. So the course is always shifting and changing, much like our hearts. I don't know what that means. Back to that barrel racing, that pin cone, it judged us. Twice we struggled to get around it, each run. Really, in a tight turn, the GT4 does as it pleases. We finished and the time wasn't fantastic, several seconds off of the other all-wheel drive car's pace, but it was the first competitive drive in the car, and very quickly we noticed that the suspension felt sprung very hard. These old Stancy boy coilovers with worn-out shocks, well, let's just say that much reworking will be required, but even so, we had come to send it, and send it we would. So now, friends, we come to my first run. I pulled to the line and I said a prayer to Our Lady, and then I dropped the hammer. But you have to understand, my first time driving this car was from the grid to the starting line. All I knew was that I needed to get it off the line, so I revved it up high and I dropped the clutch, and away we went. And I believe I might have left a piece of me behind, because the acceleration in the GT4 is a thing to behold. the almighty Sumatumi Arctic Claw tires gripped and ripped. I didn't even remember doing the slalom. It felt like a straight line, and then I was somewhere else. I hit the first left-hander, I looked across the hood, past my passenger, and after that, the right-hand drive weirdness just evaporated. I had worried that it would be very strange driving competitively from the right-hand side, but the speed, my friends, the speed was the great leveler. And the left hand had to do the shifting, just 1 to 2 and back again. Not so difficult after a first run. And then again came that dreaded pin cone. The car did not want to rotate. You turn and lift and throttle and brake and do everything you wanted to do. It just would not come around. So we're working on it. We got some ideas. And I crossed the finish line and everyone was waving at me, but it wasn't the friendly wave. It was get back over there and go again because the timer didn't work. So whether I wanted it or not, I would receive a rerun. And what a shame. An extra run in the legendary GT4. Tragic for me. When I returned, Richard looked at me and his new prized possession and he said, "You know, it sure did not look like you were taking it very easy." But after that first taste, the rest of our runs began to blur together, as Rallycross often does. Richard got faster immediately. He found cleaner lines. He stayed out of the cones, and every time he came back to grid, you could see it in his face. This car wasn't just fast, it was a teacher, and its lesson was acceleration. I tried to settle in to do the same. I focused on being smoother, not just louder. And somewhere in there, I clipped a cone or 2 or 5, and somewhere in there, we realized the car was so stiff it was practically flying over certain sections of the course, and that's when we started treating the GT4 less like a tool and a little more like the legendary old girl that we wanted Richard to take home in one piece. Hello again, friends. The Reverend here to speak to you once again about the loud pedal addiction. You know, let me tell you a little story. One time I knew a man and he was addicted to feet. And I put him in charge of something that I should not have put him in charge of. And now we have this ridiculous phone number, 1-900-HOT-FEET. You give us a call, and we will help you with your loud pedal addiction. Nothing else. I'm going to try to keep him away from the phone, I promise. But give us a call today if you are experiencing the symptoms of loud pedal addiction. Now back to our regular scheduled programming. And then Richard went out again, and little did we know that next run would decide the day. He came back in and the car fell on its face. It would not idle. He started it again, died right off. And suddenly the paddock stopped being a paddock and became an emergency room. We popped the hood and the congregation gathered around. Everyone wanted to help the legend. Richard got it started again and gave it a little gas, and the idle hunted up and down. And sure enough, upon inspection, the idle air control motor had fallen completely off the throttle body. It's my guess that it was never attached in the first place, as it conflicted with the snazzy aftermarket valve cover. You know, this isn't Richard's fault. It's the fault of someone before him, and we will undo all of those evils over time. But in this situation, all we had was some zip ties, so we did what we do best, a little bit of field surgery. But between the idle issues and the stiff suspension and the jumping, and with the cones being as hard as a rock, we decided that was probably enough for the old girl for the day. With no catastrophic damage, the legend would return to race another day. Sometimes you gotta know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Know when to walk away and when to run. But while the GT4 rested, Brother Ryan took the MGB GTS out for some test runs with his brand new suspension. You see, he had a whole new outlook to go along with that Toyota 4AC motor pushing it along like a faithful hymn, because the front of these old MGs came from the factory with a lever shock setup, straight out of an era when people thought that cigarettes were good for your constitution. So Ryan bought and welded on some outlandish shock hoops for the front. Big ones. Stuck straight up through the fenders so he could run some proper coilovers. Now this is engineering beyond that of most mortal men, but Brother Ryan always demonstrates supernatural abilities, and the change was obvious right out of the gate. Now the grenade green MGB looked a little tilty, often on 2 wheels or fewer, but Ryan managed times as fast as most of the all-wheel drive vehicles. He had had his own cone troubles, say 7 on one run, but by the end of the day, the proof was in the results. First in modified rear-wheel drive, and overall he was right up near the top of the list very, very fast. Ryan was happy, and here in the Church of Combustion, joy is measured in boost, bravery, and how close you come to flipping your car over without actually doing it. So at the end of the day, Brother Ryan was victorious. Brother Richard left with good data to push the GT4 forward, and I, though I had only done 3 runs, was a very, very happy man. Because I had seen the light and glory of Our Lady of Blessed Acceleration, and I finally understood the lore of the right pedal. But in closing, I would like to say that Brother Richard is a saint. And a little bit of a son of a bitch. For getting this car, hiding it for a month and surprising us the way he did. That was the best way that we could have closed out the 2025 racing season. But looking forward, we can see many blessed seasons ahead. Lots of work to do, lots of learning, but the legend will return, be better prepared, and with at least a few less zip ties. So perhaps the moral of this testimonial is this, my friend. Though the draw of the loud pedal is great, restraint must overcome. In other words, we must check ourselves lest we wreck ourselves. Or at least before you shake a sensor loose and ruin your whole day. Beyond that, and more specific to our day in the cold, the GT4 is every bit of the legend it has been made out to be in modern Toyota mythology. And we don't know of anyone else racing one in Rallycross around these parts, or maybe anywhere in America at all. So since you're here with us today watching this little story, you might want to subscribe to Outside Inside Outside Racing to keep track of all the wonderfully weird and rare projects that we'll be racing and subsequently wrenching on in the near future, including this glorious JDM beast. We shall not be stingy. We shall share it with the world, so you, the whole congregation, the Church of Combustion, can bear witness to the legend of the GT4. Now, until next time, how about you get out there and make some legends yourself? Go out and find your own apex, because it is better late than never. Amen. Kitty. Kitty, kitty. Come on, kitty. That's going good. Let's give it a little. Just got to jostle it a bit. You're the laziest thing, kitty. Come now. It's just going crazy. Yeah, there you go. There you go, kitty. Yes, that's a girl.